Brock Lesnar was an anomaly and possessed many great qualities about him: athleticism, speed, agility, strength, and youth. Lesnar made his way to WWE's radar by being a very talented D1 wrestler. This already gave him the advantage in signing because, for one, being a D1 athlete requires commitment and a strong mentality, the two most important qualities to wrestle in the WWF. But as always, the schedule of WWFs is a different story. There was more positives for Lesnar though, and after a stint down in OVW, he was brought up immediately after WrestleMania 18. And his stature, his aura immediately stood out. What helped his case was that there wasn't somebody shaped like this on the roster. Nobody was 6'3", could run like a cruiserweight, and every once in a while hit a shooting star press. He quickly learned the ins and outs, which helped greatly because it meshed in line with his push. WWE was pushing him like crazy, and it wasn't unnatural because look at him. Does this man look illegitimate? Unnatural in any way? And it's not out of the realm to say Brock is a once-in-a-lifetime wrestler because there's few that had so much good going for them, especially in the early days of their career. He meshed the intensity of the very best in the WWE, such as Stone Cold and The Undertaker, slowly improved his pro wrestling skills to match Kurt Angle. With all this goodwill so early on, it's no wonder why they made him champion in 4 months, because Brock Lesnar is the literal definition of a can't-miss talent. This man didn't have a single weakness barring talking. Usually the young talent always has some glaring issue. Brock, none. He had Paul Heyman doing the talking, and all he had to do was cause havoc. And he did it in an entertaining and safe way. 4 months, this man showed more than most doing their entire career, and the craziest part in all of this is that he was only 25, yet had main events in SummerSlam and became champion. Lesnar slowly introduced more to his arsenal. A common theme in this run was him dominating and overthrowing Big Show like he's a child. It always sticks out to me because of how effortlessly he throws him up and down, repeats the process, and doesn't even feel fatigued. The fastest rise in WWE history, and it was well deserved because he fit the requirements. It was natural, he wasn't overpushed. 2003 was a very important year for Lesnar because he took on the role of a babyface. It was somewhat different, and the reason why I say somewhat is because what Lesnar did previously, he did as a face, except this time he was more courageous and was demolishing heels more often. It wasn't a significant change, however, the one element that was noticeably different was the promo department. He didn't have Paul Heyman by his side anymore, so it forced him to get more comfortable on the mic. And he wasn't impressive. He got better, but it was still a weakness of his. Not to mention, he hated it. WWE saw more in the animalistic Lesnar, so he reverted back to being a heel who was more vicious, but as time went on, was more cowardly, which was strange. His mic work improved a bit, but he was on his way out. Lesnar's made it clear that he didn't want to continue being miserable with the WWE schedule and walked out. He quit, and many in the company expressed great disappointment because they invested their all in making Lesnar the #1 guy. He wasn't happy being on the road all the time and didn't feel interested in the post-WrestleMania plans, which involved being squashed by The Undertaker, who returned as the Dead Man. Drinking and taking pills had taken its toll, and to this day, Lesnar barely remembers his time in WWE from 2002 to 2004. So he went and played football. This man randomly decided to take up an interest in playing defense. Despite all the success in WWE, WrestleMania main eventer to defensive tackle. Now sounds kind of funny, but Lesnar is a natural athlete. His calling in life is to be in these professional competitions, and NFL was all that was on his mind. He didn't want to regret not trying the opportunity 10 years from now, and this man had an impressive performance at the NFL Combine. The Combine is a way to bring college athletes and show what they're capable of right before the draft. And Lesnar was no slouch. He had a great run there, and his stats shocked a lot of people, including Joe Rogan, who looked back on it. On April 18th, 2004, Lesnar suffered a motorcycle accident which changed everything. His jaw was broken, his pelvis was bruised, and there was a couple of other injuries. This greatly affected his NFL career because Lesnar was a bit broken, yet still pulled through and managed to sign with the Minnesota Vikings despite being injured. He didn't make it to the regular season but featured in a couple of preseason games. Lesnar's time with football shouldn't be overlooked because it's unknown how far he would have gone without that motorcycle accident because it clearly did a number on him. He had the strong mentality and drive to succeed, and it showed in the next couple of years. With an NFL career looking unlikely, Lesnar stuck to what he knew best: professional wrestling. He was heavily rumored to return to WWE several times throughout 2004-2005, even had a meeting in WWE headquarters for a potential return. There was this week where WWE released many talent in preparation for a potential return of the Beast. Rumor has it, by the way. And I made an entire video on it here, but long story short, this man was so close to a return. I believe he would have feuded with Batista, but it fell short. There was some resentment from both sides afterwards because Lesnar violated his no-compete clause to wrestle with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I can't really show much here because of New Japan and TV Asahi's copyright stuff. I wish I could. I wish I could dive into the entire run, but Lesnar with the Red Trunks was winning titles, facing the likes of Shinsuke Nakamura, and had a close relationship with Antonio Inoki. In his time in Japan, Lesnar even had a match with Kurt Angle, a part of Inoki's new company. He wasn't getting paid well and held the title hostage over past payments. In midst of all of this, Lesnar made a strong decision that would change the complexion of wrestling and MMA. He decided to become a fighter. At this point, Lesnar's mind was away from pro wrestling. He left New Japan. He had the match with Kurt Angle in Inoki's new promotion, IGF. and he was looking forward to being an MMA fighter. At the K1 World Grand Prix event in Las Vegas, Lesnar made his intentions clear and slowly started training in preparation for his debut. Lesnar kept a low profile throughout this time period, and TNA seemed interested in him but weren't willing to splurge the cash. Hindsight 2020 and everything, but I'm sure it would have been cool for them to have the future heavyweight champion on their roster. Lesnar's debut was on June 2nd, 2007 in Los Angeles against Mr. Shark Min-Soo Kim. The Beast sported a sword tattoo and was introduced as a 3-time WWE champion. Lesnar made good work in his debut, scoring the victory in the first round, and UFC were interested. Lesnar had drawing power stemming from his time in WWE, and Dana White saw an opportunity. It's why CM Punk was signed in 2014. Lesnar was signed in late 2007 and was due to face Frank Mir in his debut. Brock was explosive early on and had a strong grasp on the fight, but so did Mir, and a knee bar was enough for the victory. He didn't win in his first match in UFC, but that was enough to officially sign him. The one thing that stood out to me about Lesnar in UFC when looking back is his personality. It was more clear and open than he had been in WWE. What I mean is, this version of Lesnar took a long time to finally come to WWE. He was even more entertaining as a character, which wasn't really a character, it was his actual self. This man could talk, and I'll dive into that soon. Now, Brock did have the advantage of having more opportunities, but he certainly made good on them. His fourth professional fight was for the heavyweight championship against Randy Couture, and the champion was at a disadvantage weight-wise because Lesnar was a behemoth. He made it through the first round, but Brock ate him up, and in his fourth match was the world champion of the biggest MMA company out there. Crazy stuff, but as I was saying earlier, Lesnar was really entertaining. His post-match promos always stood out because even though he didn't stand out in WWE at the promos, it helped him a lot here. The Beast looked more comfortable and natural because his life was eat, sleep, family, fight. That's all there was to it, and for somebody like Lesnar who was an introvert, that was more than enough for him. UFC pay-per-views experienced a strong increase with Lesnar on top. UFC was already on the upswing towards 2006 and 2007, but Lesnar helped bring them to a higher level. UFC 100, with the main attraction being Lesnar and Frank Mir, drew 1,600,000 buys, which is the third most purchased pay-per-view in UFC history. In the Octagon, Lesnar had great athleticism. His background in wrestling was a strong asset, but weaknesses involved being hit. For some reason, he didn't take being punched as well as other fighters. His chin was a bit weaker than others, but his speed and mentality compensated. He overcame the likes of Frank Mir, Shane Carwin, a fight that most likely would have been called off earlier if it happened today, but instead Lesnar fought from the depths of defeat and overcame him to retain his heavyweight title. His appearance on The Ultimate Fighter was very entertaining, and he didn't last too long, but the candle was very, very bright. What hurt Lesnar was his struggles outside of the octagon. He suffered diverticulitis, surgeries, distress, and after losing the title to Cain Velasquez, that was the beginning of the end. Brock Lesnar's diverticulitis had done a number on him, and after a TKO loss to Alistair Overeem in December of 2011, Lesnar retired from MMA. His time in UFC from 2008 to 2011 was absolutely impressive. He showed that an outsider can get it done. Also, a fun fact, Lesnar is one of the only wrestlers to be in a UFC game, UFC Undisputed Series, and of course the EA games, Madden 06, and the WWE games. His time was rewarding for himself, but it also gave him strong leverage for a potential WWE return. WWE had showed great interest in Brock returning, going as far back as WrestleMania 27, but it never materialized. This time around, Brock had the ball in his court and was commanding. He returns the night after WrestleMania 28, and slowly it's noticeable that Brock's WWE run was going to be different. This man could do whatever he wanted. He requested Paul Heyman to do his promos because he hated talking, and the funny part about all this is Heyman's last appearance in WWE was December to December 2006, so it goes to show how much leverage Brock had. A part-time schedule, gets to wrestle whoever he wants, how he wants as well, which is important to mention, and this all stemmed from Brock leaving and showing that he didn't need WWE. It was the contrary. This is good for Brock. Sometimes not so much for the fans, because he ended up finding this formula for his matches in 2014 where he'd spam the suplex plenty of times and wear down his opponent like that. And it coincided with his greatest accomplishment in WWE, being the guy to end the streak. There's a whole topic about whether or not Brock was the guy. Me personally, I think Roman Reigns should have been the one, but if we're talking legitimate, Brock's the most legitimate there is to do it. His aura increased tenfold after this, and he became the final boss of the WWE. As it should have been. Every time they wanted to push someone over to the very top, he had to beat Brock Lesnar. His performances weren't always standout, but the element of surprise was always there. Sometimes his matches would end in 20 minutes or 1 minute. There was no set time. It was more of the same stuff, but his best matches were always with the smaller guys like AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, and Finn Balor. These three matches were some of my favorites because they sell like hell. These matches brought out the best because Lesnar had the aggression and these guys had the speed and selling ability. It seemed like he wouldn't change, but right when he won Money in the Bank, this man started turning up with a briefcase like it was a boombox. I remember making an edit of him dancing to the Baby Shark song, and everybody was messing with the clip on Twitter. You know, they'd put on some random song with Brock dancing, and it was entertaining. It brought more life to Lesnar because it was a side we hadn't seen, and this was more apparent in the next couple of years. He realized that he didn't have much time left and preferred to enjoy things. Lesnar even considered retiring after WrestleMania 36, but he found his joy again, and it's probably even better than it's been in a long time. Because this man stepped out of his comfort zone. Yes, he destroys guys, demolishes the competition, but he has fun with it now, and it feels like his actual self in there talking on the mic. So nowadays, a lot of fans have learned to appreciate Brock Lesnar for his greatness. They kind of realize, hey, this guy is a once-in-a-lifetime talent. A bunch of people forgot about it because of the way he was booked for 2018, 17, and 16, where it was more of the same stuff. Like, people didn't deny Lesnar had the ability or the talent, but because his matches were more of the same, it kind of made people forget how special he was. I'm personally glad that he changed it up a bit with the cowboy character now, talks on the mic. He's very entertaining. I hope we see more of it. And at the same time, I also think it's unfortunate that this Cowboy Brock hasn't been used to its full potential, because I feel like even though it's a very memorable part of Brock's career, it could be even more than that. So yeah, Brock Lesnar's once in a lifetime. He just is. He's one of the best wrestlers of all time, and I hope this video made you see that. Alright, what do you guys think of Brock Lesnar? Please comment down below, and that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the Kimura lock on the like button, and perhaps the F5 on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.